You're listening to Dramas Over Flowers
with Saya, Anisa, and Paroma.
And this is the Year-End Yak.
Hi everyone, this is Saya.
This is Anisa.
And this is Paroma. And this is the end
And this is still the Year-End Yak.
Yeah, still the Year-End Yak.
And we're still out of practice no matter how many years we do this.
I don't think it's that. I honestly think it's because we're friends and professionalism has no place between us.
You know, a lot of podcasts with multiple hosts have one host, but like none of us really wants to do that.
No.
So we just all host it together.
We're very egalitarian.
Yeah, exactly.
That and
It's a co-op.
pushing it to the other person. You're like, you host this one. Okay, it's mostly us pushing it to Anisa, and Anisa just surviving under the brunt.
Excuse me, I just did a whole solo episode. I'm a good girl.
Did, and she
was
was
amazing.
so good. We loved it so
Very
much.
proud.
Very
We've been
proud.
made obsolete. We could just leave the podcast to Saya now.
No! Excuse me,
This is
I'm
true.
the only one allowed to threaten leaving in the Year-End Yak. It's my thing
Well,
every year.
Wait,
Bye
I'm
then,
stealing your
everyone, I'm
tradition. I'm stealing it.
How dare you?
Well, Paroma has kicked me out of the My Demon discussion preemptively.
Listen, I in our group chat, Saya was telling Anisa that she needs to start watching My Demon because Saya and I are both loving it a lot. And immediately I was like, oh no, if Anisa starts watching and if she doesn't love Songkang in it, which, high probability because the boy is trying. He's really trying. But there are gaps.
Good.
But and I'm like,
She doesn't have to love him. The rest of the drama makes up for everything
I
else.
I agree, but
the shortcomings.
you
are
know
really
what I
okay.
love about Anisa is that if there is one weak thing about a drama and that weak thing happens to be the male lead, that is a big deal.
Why does that feel like you're damning me with faint praise? I don't know if that's something that you actually love about me. Just trying to
I
soften the blow.
understand what Paroma means. It's like you don't give them a pass, and they don't deserve a pass.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Yes.
But we can
So,
enjoy
yeah,
this.
But it does.
Stop giving men a pass 2023. No, but I will say I started watching My Demon last night. I have watched like an episode and a half, and like I think he has the charisma to carry it, and I think he has really good chemistry with Kim Yoo-jung,
That chemistry is
and also Kim
everything.
Yoo-jung makes him better. You know, like in some
Yes.
dramas where like
Yeah.
when one actor is more talented than the other one, the second one just looks washed out and like terrible in
Yeah.
comparison, but she actually makes him better. So
Yeah,
I
she
really like him
does.
so far. I think he's doing a good job.
That's really well put.
Why, thank
Very
you.
well put.
So I'm excited. I'm excited to like watch more because I know that y'all are really loving it. And plus, I need to watch Boroma's video, so I need to
Yes.
catch
Yeah.
up quickly.
Anybody who's finished the first 8 episodes of My Demon, please go watch my video.
And nobody tell Paroma if they don't like these flower boy actors.
Yes, I don't want to hear
We're not allowed to say bad things about Chanu.
You can email me about all of your complaints. I will correspond with you. We can complain about Chanu. It's fine. It's a loving criticism. so it's
leave
Yeah,
my
and I can
boy
take
alone.
it even if I don't agree
I
with
love
it.
Chanu. I just don't see him
Don't
through
think he can
rose-colored
act.
glasses. Yeah. Okay. This is not a
Back on track.
we're talking about the year. So
Yeah.
Which is ending on a better note, honestly, than it started.
this is true.
Well,
yeah.
in some
Yeah.
respects.
yeah.
Not in others.
Yeah, true.
Which we'll get to.
Absolutely. We will absolutely get to it because that's important. But
Yeah.
what I meant by this was that Dramaland did seem to hold back a lot of its better dramas till the end of 2023. And we're going to talk about
Yeah.
how inundated we have been with dramas in the last few years, but it feels like especially last year and this year, it feels like every few seconds we are getting like really high quality dramas. These all have high production value. but like most of them aren't really sticking in our minds. We were recently talking about a few dramas out of 2012, 2013, and it's incredible how many memorable dramas came out of those years, dramas that have like a high rewatch value for us. But it's really hard to even think back to 2022 and think of like 5 dramas that really stick out immediately. I'm sure if we work hard, we can think of like good dramas. We, especially us, where we have made this like half-hour job to stay updated on how many dramas are coming out each year. But it's not the same as drama sticking to you naturally just because they are so good. Like storytelling being the most important thing. And in that regard, we were discussing why this has been happening. And my take on it personally is that after the success of Crash Landing on You, and then you had, Squid Game come up, and you had a lot of dramas in that, period after 2019 and up to 2021. It was just like the Korean wave, like a new Korean wave had started, and global investment came to South Korea, especially with Netflix leading the charge. And a lot of cable networks, which usually get like a lower number of viewership, especially domestically, they join hands with these international streaming sites, first with Netflix and slowly then with other streaming giants like Disney, Hulu, etc. And what these cable networks started doing was they started co-commissioning a lot of the dramas. So they would make dramas with investment from streaming giants, from foreign investment, and making high production quality dramas, which we got really used to seeing on streaming sites, sometimes exclusively on streaming sites, but most of the time available on cable network and streaming sites. Now, we go more into what the distinction is between cable TV and public TV, which most of us are aware of, like it happens in all of our own countries too. But how they function in South Korea, we did an entire episode on the history of South Korean television. It's a two-parter. In the first part, we go into the history. In the second part, we analyze the more recent history. So basically what happens after streaming entered the market. And that will come out after these episodes. So keep a lookout on that. We go more into how cable television is different from, public television in South Korea. And why public television, so like networks like MBC, KBS, SBS, how they stayed away from Netflix and other streaming giants, but why they are being forced to change their minds about this. Because streaming is, yes, here to stay, but it also substantially changed the economics of how the industry functions. The industry can no longer function on sponsorships and product placements. They need substantial investment to keep up the quality that they have gotten used to. One of the primary places where this money goes to now is paying the talent, which is great for the most top tier talent in the industry, including directors and writers. Not so great for the rest of the industry, because some of the progress that was made in labor movement, for instance, has kind of peeled back as the industry started moving more towards contract employees, and therefore, giving workers in the drama industry less security and less safety. This was something that the industry was really struggling to improve on, especially mid-2010s. And there has not been much progress since then because the economics of things changed. And so where labor movement was getting a little bit of traction before, now nobody's talking to these groups anymore. Because if they go to Netflix is like, it's not our responsibility to talk to the production companies on the ground. If you go to the production companies on the ground, they're like, it's not our responsibility, go talk to Netflix. And the laws are not being very helpful. So there are people who are trying to change the law, but it's taking a lot of time. All of this stuff is impacting how the industry functions. I wrote this wrap-up thing, which we are going to link in below, where I go a little more into how K-drama land has changed in the last few years and why we are seeing the huge influx of dramas on our screens right now, but why the quality doesn't, like the visual quality feels like it's gone up, but the story quality feels like it's gone down. So I go more into that in that piece, which we will link to below.
It's very, very good. You should read it.
It's most
Yes.
excellent.
Most
Thank you.
excellent. Yes.
But
It inspired me to start my demon. It's like I'm gonna go watch
Yeah,
it right now.
I went back to moving after that, which had stopped after one episode. So I'm now on like episode 11 or something. So
Too good for me to finish right now.
yeah, it's definitely a lot. It's like you can't binge watch it because you need to like absorb it,
Yeah.
properly and fully, and like it's just so good.
it's a lot. Every episode of moving makes you feel like you need like a few days to just sit with it and then
Right.
move on to the next episode. I completely agree. So, sorry, in conclusion, what we want to discuss today, especially the first part of this episode, trends, is the storytelling changes that we have noticed this year and where we can go from here, where we are hoping the industry goes, what we want to see more of, and what we hopefully will see less of.
Very well said. On a more shallow note, I guess, after that very profound overview of the entire industry, which like so well put, this year was very tropey. Let's put it that way. And there were definitely trends in like the kind of dramas we saw. There were a lot of reincarnation, like past life dramas. There were a lot of contract marriage dramas. There were a lot of time travel dramas. Often these genres were mixed all into one.
Yeah.
We also saw a lot of like old school tropes coming back. And I think sometimes it worked really well and other times it really didn't work well, or it brought back things that we didn't necessarily want to see again, from 10, 15 years ago. I didn't watch a lot of those dramas, but I did watch Perfect Marriage Revenge. And I think
It was a perfect marriage of tropes.
it was a perfect marriage of tropes. It was a perfect marriage of genres. You had the revenge, you had the
Yeah.
contract marriage, you had the time travel, you had the evil mother-in-law, you had the birth secret, you had name it, and you got like there was just so many things going on, and you could tell that they knew exactly what they were doing, and they were using so many of these tropes in such a smart way, with one kind of notable exception, which we talked about in our spoiler review, which you can go back and listen to. But like in general, I think that worked really well. And it was written so well as well that it was just like very easy to watch.
It also melded sort of those old tropes with a very modern, with very modern sensibilities. What you find with the resurrection of old tropes is that they also resurrect old problems. And some of the dramas did do that, but like Perfect Marriage Revenge is an example of the drama that resurrected the trope while bringing in a very present day sensibility that made it so satisfying in so many ways, apart from the couple of notable exceptions.
Yeah, I think like it was emotionally intelligent in a 2023 way. So you didn't have people responding to things in a like a 1995 way, which would have been bothering us a lot more. Which do you guys want to mention some of the dramas where you feel like this didn't work as well?
I think Paroma watched those ones.
That's why by you guys, I mean Paroma, and I don't know if Paroma wants to rant more about things that she's already ranted about.
Well, to
you're
give a
welcome
few
to.
examples of things that they did well and then I don't think worked out so well, let's talk about the drama that we all agree did it well, Perfect Marriage Revenge. So when you have tropes like the woman being like this, mostly a housewife, but also somebody who's creative and has like a creative outlet that just incidentally suddenly turns out to make her a lot of money. But it's like she's not somebody who's pursuing a career, so she is basically your housewife heroine, and she spends her time going to cooking classes, bonding with her mother-in-law, and it's very conventional, but it's the kind of conventional which is a reality for people of that class. It's not something that feels like a real throwback because we live still live in that kind of society. What makes it more palatable when you see these things is because this drama is not all, like this kind of trope is not all we are getting throughout the year with all of the dramas we are getting, right? This stands out because right now this is against the norm. You usually see the female lead striving for her own career. She's trying to figure things out. She has her own full arc. I mean, as an independent, financially independent individual. And then you have a drama like Perfect Marriage Revenge, where, the female lead's career is not so important. Like, it's her relationship with her family. And, she is this orphan girl who also turns out to be, spoiler alert, the real child of the family. And then everybody who said that they were the real, members of the family turned out to be fake. Like, the drama really emphasizes fake and real a lot.
And it's reinforced by bloodlines. Let's
oh
not
my
forget
god, yeah.
that.
It's the
very conventional.
primogeniture thing is like really, really emphasized in the drama. So, these are not tropes that you love, and you certainly don't want to see them constantly being used. But it's fun when occasionally a drama like this comes in and it's used, like you said, in an intelligent way. People react to situations in a way that is compassionate but also smart. And yes, the trappings of it, the framework of it is very conventional and not something you want to see in every drama. But when that framework is used to progress comparatively intelligent and progressive narrative, that's fun. The progressive narrative being like a really supportive husband helping his wife get revenge against a really horrible family.
And a heroine who actually has a lot of agency.
She does. She not just has agency, she does her own investigations. She doesn't just blindly trust her husband, who's like willing to like invest all of his money as well as like body and soul into her revenge. She goes and finds out stuff about him independently, making no excuses for it, because of course from her perspective it makes a lot of sense. So she does her own investigations, her own plans, her own strategy, all the way trusting that the guy she is falling in love with is, as he's saying, will keep on supporting her. I love it. It's wholesome but also smart, and doesn't make you feel like the heroine is a pawn in somebody else's narrative, which often happens with a lot of K-dramas, where the hero's narrative takes over, especially in the second half.
Did we have, and I think, Paroma, you're probably the best place to answer this, how many dramas did we, or was there any sort of sizable or notable segment of dramas where you had like idiot heroines?
Idiot heroines. When do we not have those?
Okay.
I mean, Destined with You comes to mind immediately. Castaway Diva didn't exactly give us the most smart heroine. Give me a second
Castaway
here.
Diva tried, though.
Sure.
But I'm talking
yes.
about dramas that didn't even try.
I don't think it tried. It was not her story.
Park
in
and
the
Bin
end.
tried.
Park and Bin
Yes.
tried. That's a different issue. Yeah. They just like forgot about the heroine at a certain point. Anyway, we're getting a little off track. Do you want to mention any dramas that did the old school thing and you feel like it didn't work, or it was a throwback in a bad way?
Throwback in a bad way, yes. For instance, Destined with You, like I said, it wasn't the best. You had a heroine who was operating without brain bits most of the time, and a hero whose primary characteristic I don't know how else to. If the main lead of Destined with You had not been Rowan, I don't think anybody would have continued watching this drama past the first episode. Rowan does amazingly when it comes to humorous parts. He is excellent with humor. And he invested himself fully into this character. This character is interesting, I suppose, from an actor's perspective, where on the one hand, he is, cold and arrogant, but on the other hand, he's also very vulnerable once he's under a quote-unquote love spell, which I stopped watching this drama by episode, I think, 9, which was very late in the game, but still. I still don't know if it was a love spell or something that he made up so he could, indulge in falling in love with a girl whom he kept saying did not deserve him, whom usually he would never pay attention to. This is an old trope, by the way, where the hero keeps gaslighting the heroine and keeps telling her that she is not somebody he would usually have any interest in.
And also, it's your fault that I have feelings for you. Fix it.
Absolutely, of course.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't love that, and I don't want this to come back where the heroine is constantly made to feel like she is A, stupid, B, worthless, should just stop existing because she is an annoyance in the male lead's life. And the fact that the female lead is expected to smile through all of that stuff and still fall in love with him, I don't get it. I feel very, very hostile towards those tropes. But anyway, Rowan is a standout performer even in that role. However, if you want a better drama to watch, please watch Rowan's other drama in 2023. It's called The Matchmakers. And he's so good. He is so good
Yeah,
at
I've
it.
heard good things about that one.
And it's a completely unexpectedly pleasant drama. It's nothing that'll blow your mind away, but it's got an excellent ensemble cast. Each individual story of these two matchmakers, which are the main leads, bringing couples together is just sweet and unique, and it's just full of heart. It's a lovely story. Also, for once, the king of Choshan is nice. Like he's funny and he's a nice person. I like
historically
him.
inaccurate.
It's really. But I like how you mentioned the Rowan effect because like I saw somebody mention, I don't remember if it was Destined with You or The Matchmakers. I think it was like on social media somewhere, but someone was like, "Oh, you should watch this drama. It's really good. It has Rowan in it." And somebody was like, "Is it Rowan good or is it actually good?"
Yeah.
Because that's real.
Yeah.
Rowan good is definitely a thing.
And to what you were saying, Pete, about like the drama not being like revolutionary or anything, the thing is we don't need dramas to be revolutionary.
That's true.
We just need them to do the thing that they're meant to do properly,
Yeah.
which is like tell a good love story, tell a good adventure story, tell good stories. They don't need to be world changing or ground shifting or anything like that. They just need to be told well with some care and attention and love and hit, certain beats in a proper way. And that's it. We all go home happy. I don't know why that's so hard, Dramaland.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so then...
Yeah. I mean, so I was in Clover with like a lot of contract marriage dramas to choose from, which like y'all know is my favorite trope.
Every time one came up this year, I was like, Anisa, here's another contract marriage for you.
And I've at least started all of them. I haven't finished all of them. But I don't know who it was that pointed out that Castaway Diva also has a contract marriage in it, technically.
Ooh, that's
I was trying to figure
true.
that out. which one was
Well, the parents.
The parents.
The parents.
The parents.
I mean, though, does that...
marriage?
that was a love marriage. Like, they ran away together.
Not at first. He's like, "I'll marry you so that you can escape from your evil husband." I think they fell in love slowly after that.
I mean,
We just
thought
don't
he kind
see
of
them
fell for
falling
her
in
at-
love. But
Okay.
they
I
didn't
thought-
initially. He wasn't like, "I love you, marry me." He was like, "Let's pose as husband and wife so you can escape from your abusive husband."
But it was
That's-
because he had
It was because he totally fell in love with
sympathy.
her.
Yeah, exactly. Like he was
okay,
like,
yeah,
this
but how
woman-
many contract marriages do we see where the two people clearly have feelings for each other, but they're like, "It's only so I can get out of my debt, sign this paper." It's so obvious. I don't buy that.
Contract marriages tend to start without feelings, and that's part of the draw. Is that the feelings develop after marriage?
Unless you're watching My Demon, which I
Yes, they
shouldn't
do.
spoil.
No, but I mean, I'm not trying to have a different episode right now, but I think that there's always an element of there's something special about this person. There's something about this person that catches my eye, because otherwise, why on earth would you get into a contract with a stranger to get married? You know what I mean? Like, even if they tell themselves they don't have any feelings for the other person, there's always something that draws them to that person initially that has nothing to do with like whatever reason they've cooked up to convince themselves that they want to do this, you know?
Yes, but there are two aspects of contract marriage which Castaway Tiva's couple don't quite click. One is that usually in a contract marriage, both parties are getting something out of that contract, and the husband gets absolutely nothing. He basically has to leave his job and run away to save the woman and her children.
He became a fugitive practically.
And the second thing is that they get.
But he's such a beautiful man.
Yes.
That if you said that to him, he'd be like, but I gained a family. What else would I ever want?
Of course.
That's so true.
Sorry, what's the second reason?
The second reason is contract marriages always start with an end date.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's true.
This was always meant to be, forever.
I love how I brought something up as like a random aside and you guys were like, let's argue this. let's litigate this seriously.
That's the mood we're in today.
Yeah. But it was a good year, is my point, for contract marriages. I'm very happy.
It was.
Yeah. It was
like
really
there was so many this year.
So many.
I don't remember there ever being this many. They're always kind of like one-offs. You'll get one or two, and if you're lucky,
it's good. A lot of times it's bad. It's like it's very hard to come across a year even when there's like one really good one. And more often you get one or two and they're either like mediocre or just outright bad. And then I'm always like, huh.
Yeah.
So this was an exciting year for me.
Mm.
I also feel like in many ways that like the supernatural fusion elevated so many of those as well. Like definitely Parks Marriage Contract. Sorry, totally wrong drama. Definitely Perfect Marriage Revenge. But you also like it comes up. Like it's been coming up in combination. Like the supernatural fusion is kind of, for me, that's the characterizing thing of the year. Whether you just threw in this supernatural element with whatever other old school trope it was, and then it became this completely different.
Well, that's kind of what I wanted to ask you,
creature.
Saya, is like my whole thing about the contract marriages was kind of a segue to this, is like a lot of those were blended with time travel. And usually, I mean, I'm not the time travel expert in this trio, but like I feel like most of those dramas tend to be thrillers or at least mysteries, or like have that kind of vibe. And this year we had a lot of time travel dramas that didn't have that vibe at all. And some of them didn't even have murder, shockingly.
That is shocking.
That I thought was interesting.
Yeah, okay, I have to say something here. So in the article I mentioned that I did on like the year-end wrap, it was originally supposed to be like a top 10, like my top 10 dramas, which again, caveat, it doesn't have to be everybody's top 10 dramas. It's not even the most popular top 10. It's just my subjective top 10. And one of the dramas I included was King the Land. And I got so much pushback on that. And yes, Anisa has thoughts. You can see it on her face. What are the thoughts?
No, I was just going to say that people were really divided on that. Like some people really loved it this year and some people really hated it.
So,
oh yeah, I've actually been surprised that there was so much love for it because I've been exposed to Paroma's hate for it.
my hate, I liked aspects
Paroma
of
liked it.
I mean,
Oh, really?
of
Oh,
it.
wait, what am I thinking of? Oh, I think it was in the beginning when we first talked about it. You had a big rant about some of the
because
stuff, and that stayed with me.
King the Land is a very interesting project in which it starts off really bad. It ends good.
One of those.
But like the reason
That's
I
rare.
brought this, it is rare. The reason I brought this up is like I did like a bit of like an opinion thing where I was asking people. So the people who really loved
An opinion
this drama,
poll.
I mean not a poll.
That's what we do now.
I wanted them to write in like their subjective opinion. So I was basically asking for people who really liked the drama, what did you like? And for people who didn't like the drama, what was it that like the standout thing that you didn't like? And one of the reasons given to me for people loving King the Land was there were no murders or serial killers.
That's so interesting.
People were like, it's just a love story. It's so uncomplicated. There were no serial
Yeah.
So
killers.
what was the conflict in it? Because usually, like, the murder is there to
Class?
provide
The
some kind of
conflict was
conflict.
class. And it's not
Ah.
initially obvious, because initially it seems like they are saying, hey, it doesn't matter if there is, classism. It's all good. Classism, not so bad. Chaebol TM. But it's over the course of the drama, you realize that the drama is actually sneakily asking some really pertinent questions, especially through the male lead and female lead's relationship. And the more you realize how well they have written Yuna and Lee Jun-ho's, the characters' relationship, and how well they communicate, the more the background build up of every every wrong, like the abusive relationships in the power structure that they have been showing till now, but they've also been saying that, hey, this is just how things are, the more prominent it becomes, because like through the lens of the primary protagonist, which is not a lens that most people had the patience to watch and find out about. And I agree, I understand, you shouldn't have to watch a drama till its final third to
Yeah, it's true.
get this out of the drama. I just really liked.
But it's a nice reward if you've stuck with it.
Yeah.
that it
I
did
wonder
get
if this is a
better.
case of where like the higher ups were like, we want a candy table drama, write one, and the writer was like, but I want to do a really nuanced take
That's
on
what I
class
suspect.
struggle.
That
And
is
then
my
they were like-
conspiracy theory.
And then they wrote like 3 or 4 episodes that were like really bad, but they fit all those tropes, and they're like, okay, let's do it. And then once the drama started airing, they were like, okay, or like once they had like locked in their contract or whatever, they're like, now I'm gonna like sneakily. That would be.
That's
That sounds like the plot of a K drama. I want to watch that K drama. The story of the writer who's like trying to do some
there's not enough.
guerrilla writing warfare. Yeah.
So this writer is a first-time writer, Cherom, and I mean, yes, okay, maybe that is what I did.
Possible.
Yeah.
There's not enough dramas about drama writers.
I'll never have enough. I always
Yeah,
want more.
because I feel like they reveal like only a K-drama writer can write a drama about a K-drama writer that will really reveal something to you about how the industry works. Because like we don't have the inside scoop on those things.
We haven't
the
had
only-
a good one like that since
Be
Mellow Is My
melodramatic.
Nature.
Yeah, Mellow Is My Nature.
Yeah.
The other one, of course,
Which I
is
haven't watched
Our
yet.
Beloved, Because This Is My First Life. However, the ending was a bit too
And
out there.
Temperature of Love is another one.
Yes,
which
that's a good one.
sort of forgot about its
Kim
drama
Un-suk
writing
wrote one
part.
too back in the day.
Oh,
That was actually
which one
pretty
was
good.
that?
Was it called On Air? Maybe
oh.
I can't remember.
Maybe
but
that's
Kim
what we
Un-suk
need to
wrote
do for
one.
a
I've
throwback
I've
watch.
I've watched it. It's interesting from a sociological perspective. I don't know. I really enjoyed it at the time, but it was also like 2010, so I don't know if I would enjoy it now. But it was a very interesting behind the scenes look into like how dramas were made and the personalities behind dramas. We'll do this for our Kim Un-suk episode, which we've been like putting off for many years.
Or that the 2010s throwback that we're planning.
Yeah. Are we planning that? Okay. To get back
Well,
to the
maybe.
thread of what we were talking about, though, like, it's interesting you say that, Paroma, about, like, people loving King the Land because there was no murder. Because I felt like dramas were kind of dark this year. Is that just me? Like, even though I said that, the time travels weren't all, like, thrillery and murdery, but, like,
But
I
I
don't
also feel
know.
that's like the streamer effect, isn't
the
it?
dramas were really dark. There were a lot of, like, violent dramas. There were a lot of dramas that were kind of had a bleak outlook on the world. And even stuff that was relatively, like so for Perfect Marriage Revenge, for example, it's pretty fizzy and, like, soapy and enjoyable and bingeable, and, like, you can watch a lot of episodes. Like, it feels a little bit like high quality junk food, and I don't mean that in a pejorative way at all, but it's like so delicious and you could eat so much of it, and it's like very good, but it does have like some really dark subject matter, if you think about it. It's just that the drama never, like, it just gives everything just enough time, but it doesn't, like, make you sit and wallow in it. But it is very, and so I feel like there were a lot of dramas.
Some
Like, moving is
some
is quite dark.
examples of this would probably be like, we got a second season for DP, Death's Game, which is airing right now. Duna is pretty depressing, honestly.
Duna's pretty, yeah.
you had things like Bloodhounds and Agency and Duty After School, which I just started watching. I didn't catch it before now. Quite a lot, actually. It's
These tended towards being, like,
Revenant. Oh my
streaming
God.
dramas, right?
I forgot about Revenant.
The
Oh, also,
Glory
The Glory
was very
of course.
dark.
Vigilante is
Oh,
also
yeah,
really
Vigilante.
dark.
Vigilante.
Yeah. So, Worst of Evil. We forgot Worst of Evil. Which
Worst of
was
Evil, yeah.
apparently
Oh.
gratuitously.
Black
Yeah.
Knight. Black
Gratu-
Knight was pretty dark. That's a dystopia where
Perfect
the world is
Deal.
unlivable.
The Yu Sung-ho drama, which I totally forgot about and didn't watch, but, like, you know,
Gratuitously.
that was also pretty dark.
gory.
Yeah, so I wonder if that reaction was like partly a reaction to this landscape of dramas where like I almost feel like because there is so much like, you know, all of the big money investment into K-dramas where like everything feels like it has to be prestige all of a sudden. And in a lot of people's minds, prestige means like it's dark and it's heavy.
Yeah.
I don't know if I don't think that's all of it, but I definitely think that's contributing in some ways. And I don't know, like
I don't.
sometimes you just want some fluffy like escapist TV, you know?
I
Yeah.
will credit. So there is this video essay channel on K-drama. It's called the K-drama Research. I forget. I will link to the video I'm referencing below. Where so they were trying to address the question of whether Netflix, I don't know, is bad for K-drama land basically, which is a concept that I have my own thoughts on. But so I was watching their videos and I don't agree with a lot of the points they were making, but one point they made a lot of sense to me, which was that before, with all of the broadcasting rules that dictate how a K-drama should be made, everything from, you know, every time you enter a car, put your seatbelt on, which, you know, drama writers changed into a romantic moment between the hero and heroine, how they hold cigarettes or don't hold cigarettes, how a knife should be held, to everything, dialogues that are used, everything has a broadcast rule on it. So with streaming coming in, and yes, like we were talking about, at some point earlier in the year, we did an episode where we were discussing how, you know, a lot of these drama opportunities, like these prestige, shorter format drama opportunities, first went to film directors instead of drama directors. That has actually been changing, especially in 2023. We saw a lot of drama directors, starting from, of course, The Glory, helm these big budget streaming productions. And because of the freedom from broadcasting rules somewhat, you saw them tackling storylines that wouldn't usually be tackled in, you know, public television, basically. And the point that the video essayist was making was that instead of, you know, the dramas we are used to being the real K-dramas, maybe these are the real K-dramas. This is the story that these writers and directors have been wanting to tell, but haven't been able to because of broadcasting rules. That's a good point. It's at least a point that's worth thinking about. Do I want all dramas to be this dark? No, of course not. But also, something else to keep in mind is quite a few of these dramas are webtoon adaptations. Vigilante, for instance, is a very popular webtoon that was adapted to screen. And a lot of these gorier webtoons are getting adapted to screen, but they would never have before, because who would, you know, sponsor them? Who would give them the budget? So that's also a drama like Moving, this supernatural drama, which was, honestly, they outdid international supernatural dramas. Like, I was thinking of how we had Heroes in the early 2000s and the potential for that drama, or even something like Sense8, and how that potential never came to fruition, but Moving did what all of those dramas failed to do. And where would they have gotten the budget for it, or even the clear trust that the production house had in the talents pushing this drama forward? It could only have happened in Disney, on a big streaming platform. It's an adaptation. It's a webtoon adaptation. So I look at it optimistically, honestly, especially now that the industry is pushing back and you have local production houses claiming back titles, whereas before streamers would come and be like, we own the title because we are putting in so much money. Now production houses are not bending over so easily. They are asking for like ownership of IP. They're taking in less investment from these streaming giants. They're diversifying investment sources, basically trying to keep more control over these properties. Now, let's see where we go from here. But right now, it's a space where a lot is happening. We can only see and sort of hope that the industry develops into a space that gives us all kinds of stories and not just one kind. I'm talking a lot today. I'm so sorry.
No, I agree
it's
with
all
that.
great
That's
stuff.
like thanks for bringing me back up from my cynical takes. Which sorry, I know I have a lot of those, but yes, let's hope for the best. And I mean that is a good change that we're seeing now, and I hope that it opens up K-dramas to more things. It's interesting, right? Because like those rules that objectively are pretty restrictive created this thing that that we all found 10 plus years ago and like really enjoyed, and I wonder if it's also like, especially for longtime K-drama fans, it's also like a taste thing of like, oh, like this thing that I loved so much is changing and I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know how I feel about that. I think some of it has been good and some of it has been not so good personally, but like, does that matter? I guess is the question. Like if the people are making the stories that they want to, and I do think that there is definitely still that sort of that pressure to make something that will be globally appealing, like more of that pressure than there was before, and I don't necessarily think that's a good pressure, but if it also means that people can make, I just hope that it leans more in the direction of people making the stuff they want to make and less in the direction of let's make something that is going to sort of appeal to the widest and lowest common denominator.
Agreed.
I still feel that we don't need the sort of the level of gratuitous violence, the random nudity, the sort of explicit sexual content. I don't think we need all of that to still have the good stories. And I feel like once those things come in, that puts me off watching them. So completely selfishly, I find that a little bit sort of more it restricts what I can watch in terms of storytelling. Because the relief in finding K-dramas was complex storytelling without those things that make it, difficult for me to watch or that would make me decide to not watch something.
For example, there is this scene of kind of like partial frontal nudity in the glory,
right?
which came completely randomly, and it came so suddenly that you had no chance to prepare for it or look away. So if that is something that would put you off, to have that slap on your face given no chance at all to opt out is difficult, because there was no need for a scene like that unless it was for the shock value. And this was a discussion that happened immediately after that episode aired. Like, what was the purpose? Like, there was no storytelling purpose to that. So yeah.
And I also feel that's very male gazy back in the, if we talk about the way that K-dramas catered to a female gaze, I feel that when you go towards that other, that sort of what we would describe as a more globally appealing type of drama, sort of the HBO type of drama, it then becomes more catered to a male gaze than a female gaze, I feel. Which is like neither here nor there.
I agree. And also to that point, I'm going to bring out my demon because, again, we are all enjoying that. And it's a good, it's something startled me. Anisa, you may not have reached that part yet. There is this shower scene, like a male lead shower scene, brooding. He's thinking it's a fan servicey scene that's meant to give you like a few seconds of like glimpses of how fit the male lead is. The usual K-drama female gaze way of doing things is like, a gentle, water falling on his shoulders, like you pull back, show his back maybe, little glimpses of his abdomen. I'm honestly fine with or without that scene. I don't need it. But this thing where you make the male lead stand facing the camera, and he's just standing there. It's like I think it went on for too long. I think it's like long 5 seconds of him just standing there under the shower, and you're seeing his entire full chest, and like there is no purpose to that scene. Like for instance, if you're watching Bloodhound and you have the two male leads like stripped down to their waist, and they're both like really well-built men, but there is a purpose to that scene. Like they are, they're fighters, they're athletes.
I see what you're saying.
Why am I looking at this guy just standing,
This is more
doing
like,
nothing?
here, have a shirtless sun guy.
Yeah, let's just stare at this man while he's in the bathroom
And
taking a shower.
I don't think they would have done this if this was a television only or a primarily television. And the other thing that they did in My Demon is where one of the characters' name is Pokyu, and you have another character. Very
I find that so
emphatic.
funny, I'm sorry.
I know. Like, listen, I understand that level of humor, but what was startling to me was one character underlining how that can be mispronounced by not just saying, as you would, I'm sorry for swearing on the podcast right now, that's not the intent, but they don't just say fuck you. The woman emphasizes fuck you, which they would not have done if this was, meant for TV primarily. They did it because...
But then you had that in Run On as well, though.
Yes,
was
you
that
do.
A Netflix drama? I can't remember.
I don't...
Okay.
But it was also like a streaming first drama, as in like the investment came primarily from streaming. And it's interesting to me because those things, it's not so much that they wouldn't be allowed, like the writer wouldn't even think of including these things. But they do because they know that the same rules don't apply to these dramas. You know what I'm talking about?
These two characters.
I do too. I'm not complaining about the character writing, but you know what? These moments stand out to me.
Just thinking about it is making me laugh. They're hysterical. Sorry, I'm just having my own movie reel playing in my head now.
They have a lot of great moments. Both of them do. I love them so much.
To get back to murder for a second, though, I know we're rewinding about like half an hour or something, but I kind of was a little bit disappointed that we only had one murder time travel, because I would have taken them all as murder time travel.
Only one?
My Perfect Stranger.
Perfect Marriage Revenge had murder too.
Oh, but not like it wasn't that. It wasn't.
Oh, I
wasn't
see.
the same.
The murder was
I
kind
don't
of
know
by
if
the way, and it wasn't the main point.
Right, exactly.
It wasn't a thriller.
Like it wasn't a thriller, yeah. Because usually I actually find, you know what I do? Every few months I sit down and I scroll through the time travel tag on my drama list, trying to find what is there that I might have missed. And the only ones that I've missed are like the pure romance ones, and I don't feel the same way about those as I do about the other ones, because they're a different type of show. And I'm actually quite surprised I watched so many of them this year, because usually they're the ones I'm slower to watch. But yeah, My Perfect Stranger started me off, and then I was like, okay, I can't get enough of this. Give me more.
I suppose the story of Park's marriage contract does count as a murder time travel.
It does, but it moves too slowly.
It
moves too
That's
slowly, and it's not that it moves slowly. It's that it picks the wrong things to focus on, and then it spends the time on like irrelevant parts of the story instead of advancing the plot parts, which is just like, it's annoying to me.
I agree, and
there's still a good story in there. Its proportions
but
are wrong.
while listening to your episode, your lone yak episode, where you were
My
talking
rant.
about, I loved it so much because
I lost my mind.
Come on, it was so much fun. It was great. And the part that I absolutely loved was the female lead adjusting way too quickly to modern times. On the one hand, the way she's characterized, you can see that, like you said, she's a really intelligent character. Her understanding and adjusting to modern times is not surprising. But the quickness with which she adjusts to things that should be habitually difficult for her, that really throws you off. It feels like, what was the point of bringing her from the past if you were just going to make her a completely modern character?
Yeah. And like the fish out of water element is lost.
I already found her way too 21st century, even when she was in the past, and that's part of the reason why I haven't
Yeah.
gone back. I was watching it with my sister, and she was like, "Why does she have such a modern haircut?"
Like, actually, Anisa and I had this conversation the last time we all got together. Like, we'd stopped recording and then we just talked a little bit about it. And, Anisa said to me then, you need to remember it's like a fusion saga. It's not an actual,
That is
like,
true.
you can't take it seriously either in its historical parts or in its modern parts. But it still made me so mad. Even though I was like trying to hold that in my head. I was like, no, this is not okay.
Yeah, like they're doing it deliberately, but it still kind of made me roll my eyes. I was like, okay.
Like, you need to pick your thing and commit to it, and it wasn't doing that.
Yeah, so pick one, and also we will pick one drama that we love the most in our next segment where we'll talk about a year in K-drama. So let's get into that next. So, how were our personal years in K-drama? How was it? Like, what did you love? What did you hate? What did you change in your relationship to K-dramas? Have you been watching them this year?
I had a better C-drama year than a K-drama year. Every trope that I liked in a K-drama, for instance, like the whole going back in time thing, was done better in a C-drama. For instance, Coding Palace did it pretty well. Perfect Marriage Event was still great and it was very entertaining. But like that seemed to be like the operative thing. Anything I liked in a K-drama was done just so much better in C-dramas. For instance, Meet Yourself. The whole, girl goes to the countryside to sort out her life thing, which Samdalri is doing right now, is just, again, done so beautifully in Meet Yourself. And one drama, of course, that I really liked that didn't really have like a C drama parallel that was done better is Call It Love. And I can't explain my affection for this drama. There was something so compelling about the attraction between two people who are so slow to trust, but also seem to be the exact opposite of each other initially, and then you slowly find out exactly how similar they are under their layers. But also a drama where a major part of that process of falling in love is their individual personalities clashing with each other, which is the kind of conflict you rarely find in Dramaland, because the conflict is almost always external. Here is an internal conflict. You have a female lead who's very abrasive with her words, who's very blunt, to the point where she doesn't just hurt the individual she's speaking to. She sees that as a badge of courage, saying what's on her mind. And then you have a male lead who is too much of a pushover. Like, he just takes it when other people throw things at him. And you have at various points the female lead pointing out that him just taking abuse and never fighting back is not helping anything. And you have the male lead pointing out that her just saying hurtful words is not an effective mode of communication. The fact that this is written into the storytelling and done so compellingly, where it feels like their relationship is just like the push and pull of it is deepening and just so rich, it's the kind of writing that I aspire to. And honestly, for me, in 2023, Call It Love is the standout K-drama that I'll remember the year by.
That's me too. I co-sign. I like everything that you just said. I want to say also, like, that internal personality sort of conflict. I mean, obviously, there's another reason why it's hard for them to be together, which is kind of the premise of the drama, that she's trying to take revenge against his family.
Which is also, by the way, a really old-fashioned thing that they brought in, but it doesn't feel old-fashioned. Just done so well.
Because they completely change how they approach this extremely makjang trope, right? But like that personality conflict, which is the real conflict. I mean, that's the one that you sort of experience throughout the whole drama. And then the revenge thing comes in much later. It's kind of a non-issue for a lot of it. And that internal conflict, I haven't seen that done this well in a romance since Run On, which was another one where it was really, okay, yes, there was some class struggle, there was some other stuff, but really it was like the people that they were kind of clashed, and yet they were attracted to each other. And so like they had to work out, okay, how do we make this actually work? Being the people that we are, how do we learn to be together because we really want to? And like, that's just the best. That's the good stuff. That's like the emotional, like relationship building, like complex, sticky, wonderful stuff that I love. And I think like with Call It Love, it also had such incredible vibes, but it wasn't a drama that solely sustained itself on vibes, even though the vibes were strong enough that it kind of could have. It had the vibes, it had the chemistry, it had an incredible ensemble cast where like every single performer was acting their heart out. It had beautifully written dialogue. It had even more beautiful silences. The music was gorgeous. And what the drama was saying was so beautiful, at the end. And it was it was one of those dramas that like really stay with me in the sense that like it was both incredibly melancholy and healing at the same time, which is like hard to do well, And I remember you saying early on that it reminded you of Interest of Love. And it did start out reminding me of Interest of Love as well, which is another drama that I really loved this year. But in the end, that mixture of like melancholy and healing gave me similar vibes to Just Between Lovers, or I think what's the official title, Rain or Shine. But like you have these two very damaged people who have been hurt in different ways by the same thing in some ways. And they find each other, and they probably shouldn't have found each other, but they do, and they fall in love, and they end up, and that ends up being like a vehicle for personal growth and healing. And it's not that falling in love healed them. It's that meeting each other sparked something within themselves that caused them to be able to finally move on from what happened to them in the past. Oh, I just love that so much.
Yeah, me too.
Also, Kim Young-kwang and Lee Sung-young were like two of my favorite performances of the year. They're so perfect together. I want to see them in something happy next.
But for me, this was such a soothing romance. This was, it's one of those cliche things where you feel like their hearts were talking to each other, even when like they were saying things that they didn't quite mean, weren't quite being able to express themselves. There is that moment where Kim Young-kwang's character basically confessing his feelings to her, and it's such an unexpected confession that happens. It just, moments like that just okay, we've said enough. We love it.
We've said enough. Yeah,
watch it if you haven't watched it yet.
I guess the last thing I will say is there's a lot of subtext, like excellent subtext. Just the subtext is better than the text in a lot of ways.
Also, really great secondary cast, including what's his name, Sang-jun.
Sang-jun was great.
Yeah, I hadn't seen in a long while. I'm just rewatching I Need Romance 3, where I loved him. But it's been a while that Sang-jun's done like an interesting performance. I really loved him in this.
Yeah. And like the last thing I'll say is the romance was beautifully done, but every single other relationship was also really well done. Very fleshed out. It felt real. The friendships, the sibling relationships, the parent and child relationships, whether they were good or extremely toxic, like everything was excellent. Okay, Saya.
Saya's feeling very left out. She just should watch dramas.
Saya should have
her
watched
friends
Call It
tell them
Love.
to.
Yeah.
I can't help being myself. That said, however, I wrote this down as you said it, Anisa, how you said the drama is a vehicle of personal growth and healing. I feel like that's what I've been doing this year. Like, I am going through personal healing in a lot of things. And that's probably what I sought out in dramas. And it's probably what's kept me fed. I was initially going to say Perfect Marriage Revenge is my drama of the year, but as you talked, I realized it is my drama of the year. Also thanks to the recency effect. But also, I think the quiet hero of the year for me is not in fact a drama, but a film, which, we have an episode coming up on it, but Past Lives. That was many things.
This is cheating.
I know. I'm sorry. But as you were saying all of this, what I was planning to say just changed completely.
I mean, I mentioned C dramas, so I should be allowed.
Yeah, I mean, what I was going to talk about is how, I started off the year pretty okay with Our Blooming Youth and, what is it? There's too many perfect named dramas. My
Perfect Stranger?
Yeah. And, me and my thrillers and my constant search for a hit. But, I don't think I really watched any, K-drama thrillers this year apart from, that one or two at the beginning of the year. One. Instead, I've sort of ended up seeking comfort in... Well, I was telling you guys before we started recording that I was organizing my watch list and I've got this big section which is just titled BTS, unsurprisingly. So I've been watching lots of stuff that hasn't been K-drama, although it's been K-drama adjacent. I've watched a lot of variety. I've watched a lot of BTS variety. I've also sort of slowly transitioned into the sort of web variety and YouTube talk show kind of thing, and those are they're very rich. You can watch a 30-minute segment of something like Shuchita or I Use Palette, and you're just it gives you a lot that keeps you fed, and then drama sometimes takes from that. And the other thing I also realized as you were talking is that I've gone out more. I've just, the time that I had to sit down and watch K-dramas, part of why I've watched less is just I'm being more active in sort of my offline life. I'm meeting people. I'm, saying yes more than I'm saying no these days. In fact, I don't even think about saying no these days. Talk about a complete sort of turnaround in the type of person I actually thought I was.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm experiencing a revival of my desire to have a social life. Thanks, Anisa, for kicking that off, by the way.
I live to serve. Excited that I was a part of that. I think, so listeners, Saya's referencing when I went to visit her last year in the end of November, beginning of December, and we were going out every day. And Saya was like, I can't go out every day. And then after I left, she was like, you got me into the habit of going out every day, so I'm going to continue to have a social life. I was like, yes.
And I've been doing that, every week my calendar was full of I'm meeting this person at this time. And I'd have my sort of personal days where I'd go off and do something by myself, whether that was just going to watch, pointless films or watching good films. I did that too because, I discovered that I had access to very cheap cinema tickets. So I've rediscovered the joy of going to the cinema. That's been really fun. This year has also been the year that I think I may have finally outgrown YA. I read a lot less this year, again, because I was just going out more and, doing stuff. But also it's not appealing to me. I'm just not interested in those stories. And I found myself gravitating a lot more towards, these mature romances of grown-up people thinking in grown-up ways and experiencing and dealing with conflicts that are much more recognizable to me in my own life. And that's been an interesting revelation because I suddenly realized this last week, and that's at the very top of my notes. 2023, the year I outgrew YA and didn't care. Because sometimes you have a crisis of identity.
I remember having this conversation with you a couple of years ago. I was like, I don't really like YA for those reasons. And you're like, but you don't understand. It's so heightened. It's so good. I was like, yeah, I'm not interested.
Yeah, I am a slow, a slow learner, slow grower. So
no, I mean, I think that I think you can love YA your whole life too. You don't have to outgrow it, quote unquote. I think it's just like,
That's
what are you
true.
looking for, right? What do you need? What do you
It's
want?
no longer
in your-
keeping me fed, I guess is
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I also think, like, you know, whatever we enjoy, it always comes back to the writing, doesn't it? And, like, the writing in YA no longer has that ring of an emotional truth to me. Like, there's something missing in it. And I could still enjoy youth dramas, but I'm not as immediately drawn to them as I would have been 10 years ago. Like, we were just talking the other day about School 2013. Well, we weren't talking about it. I mentioned it. But, and Airs. But these dramas that I automatically would have watched 10 years ago, now it would take a lot for me to start a youth drama and feel the compulsion to just jump into it. Whereas, actually, even the mature romances take me a moment. But they do have a bigger draw because I just want to see people behaving sensibly, doing things that I can imagine, like making choices I can imagine making. And yeah.
Yeah. So my year in K-drama was, I just didn't watch that much. Like, I started a lot of things and I dropped a lot of, I feel like I usually give things at least 4 episodes. I feel like I dropped a lot of stuff this year after like 1 episode, 2 episodes. And like, I think it's 2 things. I think one of the things is what, Paroma, you mentioned in your year-end review essay. Like, there just weren't a lot of dramas this year that like just stood so far above the rest. Like, we had a lot of good dramas, like decent dramas. It's not one of those years where I'll look back and be like, oh yeah, like that. These are like the dramas that just like really stick with me. Like, yeah, I really loved Call It Love. I really enjoyed Perfect Marriage Revenge. The Interest of Love was a very interesting, and like I was like really hooked during the entire time that was airing. But I don't know how many of these dramas will, other than Call It Love, I don't know how many of them will like really stick with me in the long run. And like I watched about half of Glory and I'm like about halfway through Moving. So part of it is that like we did have good dramas, but I think the amount of dramas is kind of overwhelming the quality of dramas in some ways.
Yeah.
Where we have 10 times the amount of shows that we would have 10 years ago, but like you said earlier, and we were talking about this in our group chat, like there's not even a handful that we kind of would like remember as being iconic from the year. But I think the other part of that is just I have had a really busy and eventful and like tiring year, and I just have not had a lot of energy to watch things or that much inclination to watch things. And I think work has been very all consuming, but I also think that like I'm wondering if I'm starting to get out of that glow of K-drama fandom that I used to have. And I don't know if it's that the shows have changed or if I've changed or if it's just like a natural progression of like being a fan of something, at this point it's been almost 15 years. I don't know. I don't know what it was. I just wasn't as engaged this year. I think I finished like 10 dramas. And a lot of those I didn't love that much. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. So not to be all depressing and stuff, but that was kind of my year.
But I also think it's okay.
It is. I get feeling, you had a few dramas that started off in a way where it felt like, hey, this is a fresh take on something conventional. For instance, Love to Hate You, for instance, was actually qualitatively a pretty good drama. I didn't agree with the gender politics of it. I think I've spoken about this in the podcast before. But mostly it made that mistake where it equated wariness of men with misandry, while you also had misogyny in display. It equated misogyny with wariness of men as if they were on the same level, and it was not the best. However, the actors, Yuto was in this drama, for instance, and I hadn't watched Past Life, obviously, at that point when I watched this drama. And after I watched this drama, I went and watched Past Life, and my God, that's like such a discovery of this actor. But it was a drama that tried to do something new. So you also had something like what was it called? Bora to Bora, which started off interesting. It spent quite a bit of time showing you the main female lead's devastation after a really bad breakup, where that breakup didn't just affect her personal life but also her professional life. You had an actor like Yuana fully committing to the performance of that grief, and it's really convincing and it's gut wrenching to watch. But then the rest of the drama just like feels like it doesn't know where it wants to go, and it you had a lot of these dramas where it felt like they were trying to do something new and then it just didn't do anything new, and it didn't, it failed to stand out, but also what it did was it disappointed you in like a really heavy way. Like you were just building up your expectation and then it was just like crash and burn. A sillier drama that I can bring up is See You in My 19th Life, which was a webtoon I really loved. It was a pretty gently written webtoon by the writer of Ihe, who also wrote A Good Day to Be a Dog, also very similar, like a gentle type of webtoon. The pacing is very slow. But then adapting it into drama version, they completely messed up the pacing of both dramas. And they were not even by the same studios. It was bought by different, the two properties were bought by different companies. They were both released in 2023 and they were both messed up. So this is what sometimes happens when you adapt a webtoon which hasn't been written like a K-drama. You have webtoons that are written like a K-drama, so they translate very easily. And then you have webtoons that are written in a very differently paced, and then you struggle to adapt them onto the screen. So you had these moments when you're like, oh, this is an interesting story, the concept is so interesting, and then the execution just, they don't just do it badly, they crush you with how bad it is. And that happened really often. I started 54 at this point dramas this year. I just started Gong Song Creature. I don't recommend it. It's
Oh,
got
really?
the visuals in place. It's got some of it's trying to be funny horror, and it's not succeeding in any of
The
it. Like,
cast is so good.
I
Yes.
know.
yes,
Oh,
I
that's
know.
That's
disappointing to
disappointing.
hear.
Yeah. I've heard other people say that they were disappointed in it too. You know, Parma, like, I really, actually, that reminds me of something that I was going to say and I forgot to say about this year is that, like, there were a lot of shows that did different and new things, and a lot of them disappointed me. And the shows that I ended up loving were much more of that conventional.
Yes,
You know,
exactly.
it was the romance. It was like the romances that were like old school kind of conventional that like really worked for me. Like
Crash
Interest
Course
of
and
Love.
Romance.
Yeah, like Interest of Love is a melodrama. It's in many ways it's like a very K-drama, you know, like Crash Course in Romance, pretty straightforward romance. Call It Love. The romance between Han Hyo-ju and Jo In-sung in Moving.
Welcome to
Ugh,
Samdalli
that's
as
so
well.
well
Can I
done.
just
I
throw
haven't
in a
started
little
watching
hint of
that yet. But you know, like the dramas that I was really excited for, and also like Perfect Marriage Revenge, like a really great old school romance with like, you know, and all of these have like updates and, you know, they are from 2023, but it has that like essential romance K-drama like DNA. Whereas the ones I was really excited, like I was very excited for Castaway Diva, completely disappointed me. You know, the other dramas that I was really excited for because I was like, ooh, how are they going to do this premise? Crash and burn, like See You in My 19th Life. It was like such a nothing of a show that I dropped it after, I don't know, like 5 or 6 episodes. And there were other shows where I would just start them.
My Lovely Liar.
And I I actually watched all of My Lovely Liar,
Yeah.
but yeah, that was also like such
A
an
crash and
interesting
burn
premise.
type. Yeah.
They didn't do anything with it. They didn't go anywhere with it. So
It's like they forgot their own premise halfway through, and they were like, "We were making a point," and then in the second half, they were like, "What was that point again? I don't think we need to make it anymore."
even with like A Good Day to Be a Dog, which I'm like slowly watching at this point, I don't know, like 8 or 9 episodes in, and I'm like, what about the premise? Like, aren't we gonna move with that premise? Like, nothing is moving. It's just
By the time
I'm
you're
like,
in
okay.
episode 8, you can pretty much stop. It feels like it's ended anyway.
Oh, really?
I don't. Yeah, because they wrap up a primary conflict of the drama, and there is still conflict left, but they are just moving at a glacial pace.
Okay,
after
maybe
that.
I'm on like 7 because we haven't wrapped anything up where I am, and I'm
Okay.
like, come on now, like how many times are you gonna try to engineer yourself to be in the same place as him at night and nothing happens? Like this is getting old.
I'm okay with that. I'm not gonna complain about that. I found him too cute.
I mean, the dog is very cute and their interactions are very cute, but I'm just like, come on.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I felt that a lot, the come on feeling. Like,
Yeah.
can you please tell the story? I don't want to just be stuck in this single static moment,
Yeah.
which seems to stretch on forever, and it's annoying.
So, for instance, one of my top 10 dramas is My Dearest. And it's a drama I will go to bat for. I love it so much. The main romance is so great. But at some point in the middle, the conflict does get a bit repetitive. I think it was extended too much. It didn't have to be a 2-part drama. It really didn't have to be like that. But it's just like with Alchemy of Souls, it's like you're deliberately stretching a story that's getting really high rating into
Yeah.
2 parts so that you can milk it more, and that affects the pacing of the story. That's just
Yeah.
Frustrating.
I also felt like there were a lot of dramas where like I knew what the basic premise was going in, and it took like 4, 5, 6 episodes to actually get to that premise. And so I was like, why do I have to sit through all of this time where like we know where we're going and there are no surprises, and yet we're just like I don't know. That was my experience with a lot of shows. I don't know if y'all had the same.
That's true, but that said, this also was a year where I think 12 episodes dominate over the sort of traditional 16 episodes. So in many ways, many dramas did feel tighter, but then they just weren't telling good stories some of the time, or they just have like that one fatal flaw that marred an otherwise good drama that sort of kept it from being the drama you could take home.
I think also like I have to acknowledge that this is also like partly a me problem, because there were definitely dramas throughout the year that like I know people loved. I know I'll probably love. I just haven't geared up the energy to watch yet. Like for example, DP2, I know I'm gonna love it. Do I have the emotional fortitude to watch it right now? No. I watched the first episode of My Dearest and I was like on board, but I was also like, oh, this is like an epic war drama love story and I'm gonna cry. I'm just gonna like pause.
You feel you need to do some kind of mental prep to get yourself into the state where you can watch it. Yeah.
And like I knew that the glory was going to be really dark, and so I waited, and I had to like stop after 7 episodes. I was trying to like binge watch it for the Year-End Yak, and I was like, this is emotionally like
exhausting,
harming me. Like I can't keep going. Like I need to take a break and come back to this. And I know a lot of people loved that one. So like maybe I just didn't watch a lot of the shows that people loved, but I don't know. Like I didn't have the emotional space for a lot of these shows.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely got a lot of comments and DMs from people who had just seen like, the numbered list of dramas that included. They were like, you mad? It doesn't have a time called You. It doesn't have, I don't know, whatever drama it was that worked for them. And I'm like, but it's a personal list. Like, here are 10 dramas that worked for me. It doesn't have to be, your list.
And unfortunately, like, it doesn't matter how long you spend on your list or how much research you do or how much time you spend on it. Like, people are going to be mad that it's not the list that they had in their mind.
I have to also acknowledge that I got like the loveliest comments too from people who were like, goodish list, but here are other dramas that would make it to my own list. And I acknowledge that. Good for you. Yes, exactly how you should approach lists.
I think that's a very healthy way of approaching lists. Is like, this is a nice list. I also would have put this on my list. Let's share our list. Like it's so personal.
Yeah. I both love and hate how like the review functions as a way of expanding your watch list. Like, here are more dramas I need to add to my watch list.
Yeah.
Like, great that there are more, but when am I going to watch them?
And I think that's also why I feel like the Year-End Yak gets harder every year, is that like
We watch
the
less every
amount
year.
of dramas that are available to us to watch it's like ballooning. It's not even like slowly expanding over the last like 5 years. It's those like graphs where you see the exponential,
Yeah.
the way that that's what's happening. And it's like a lot of the shows that end up being really popular, I don't know, like they blow up on TikTok and I don't even know that they're coming out. Like we don't have the ability to do What's Up in Dramaland anymore because there's so many shows coming out that like we wouldn't be able to keep up with them. So like I'm not even regularly checking what's upcoming.
Same.
I do that. I do that, but I don't do it like constantly. So it's hard to predict what's going to become popular and which shows people want you to talk about at the end of the year, but also like it's just hard to watch everything because there's so many things. Like we used to be able to like not watch everything, but I kind of used to watch everything like back in 2009, 2010. Or
at least try it.
Yeah, like at least check out the first episode or the first 3 or 4 episodes.
This is definitely a streaming effect, and this is true for every country. The volume of work that comes out, it's simply not, because it used to be regulated by the time slots you got on television. So there would be a limitation to how many, dramas or shows you could release in a year. But now there is no such regulation.
Yeah.
Put out as much content as you want. It can be infinite. It can be anything.
Right. Episodes can be any length, any number of episodes.
Yeah.
I think like this is also not just something that we're feeling, because I saw a lot of comments from people also when we were asking them to vote in the Goguma Awards, which we'll talk about in the next episode. And a lot of people are like, I don't feel qualified to vote because I hardly watched anything. I was like, vote anyway, because neither did we.
Yeah, it feels overwhelming. And also the other aspect of this is that there's barely any promotion for a lot of these dramas.
Yeah.
Like like Dead's Game, for instance, I found out Dead's Game was releasing like 2 weeks before, and only because a few people started talking about it, Sai included. And I didn't know Dead's Game was coming, and it's got the biggest, like it's got the mega cast. It's got an insane cast.
It's got all your favorite people.
It's got everybody. And I'm like, I didn't even know about this thing being like, there must have been some buzz, but what happens is you have so much coming out through so many channels. There is little to no budget put into marketing of individual dramas anymore. Like the cast doing interviews once the drama starts airing is not promotion. Promotion happens beforehand. You create buzz for a drama that's being released. There's no such thing anymore, because they're like, hey, we're dropping it on streaming. That is all promotion. That's required. No, that's not how you...
It's also like, the streamers don't necessarily have the infrastructure that has that process, like the drama rollout.
Well, where are they going to put it, right?
Yeah,
and when you had
exactly.
broadcast television, when your one show was coming to the end, you would put, promos for the next show in like the last few episodes.
I forgot
and
about
people
that.
would be like, oh yeah, this is coming next. Like now, instead of watching, this show at 9 p.m. on Wednesdays and Thursdays, I'm going to watch the next drama that's coming out. And now it's like, if you're watching Netflix, you don't have ads. On Hulu, if you don't have a premium subscription, you have a regular subscription, you do have ads, and they will promote really random shows on there, I will say. Like, it's never tailored to what you're watching. Like, I remember I was watching some show on there, and they were bringing like this promotion for some show with an actress that was popular in the 90s whose name I can't remember anymore, and it literally felt like a show from the 90s. I was like, who wants to watch this terrible sitcom? And it just kept coming over and over again. But like with most streaming platforms, you aren't watching ads. So I guess like what they do is they put ads on like social media, but then also that's also kind of dictated by the algorithm, and a lot of the algorithms are very wonky.
So Netflix content, or like what used to be Swoon. The Swoon has now been rebranded into Netflix content, which is just not
K content.
K content.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
It's why would you rebrand it to that? What on earth is going on? We are familiar with the people who created and used to run with, familiar as in like we know of and have worked under, the people who used to run the Swoon, and then they left, and then this was completely rebranded, and now that is the only promotional channel that they have, where they release the trailers and then they release those Jenga playing cast interactions, which is fun, but that's it. That is all there is. And then you have Vicky's own promotional channel, which does exactly the same thing on Instagram. I mean,
so it's just become so scattered, right? And like diffused. And I'm sure, as somebody who also creates media and is trying to figure out how to market it to an audience. And like, I mean, we worked with a marketing firm to launch The Broadside this fall. And even they were like, well, you know, like you put a little money here, you put a little money there, you promote it over here. Like you have to promote it in so many different places. And then you're just kind of like observing to see where you kind of get results. And like nobody really knows. And it's kind of a broken system because
That's
everything
exactly
is
the
new.
thing. You don't actually have metrics that directly show you that promoting on this social media versus that social media actually gets you more dedicated viewers / listeners on this other platform. The cross-platform translation is very hard to track. So it's just a mess at this point. We don't know what we are throwing money at or, effort on.
And like, you know, if you haven't seen the K-drama tracker, to give you an idea, like I went all the way like through all of the dramas that were listed on my drama list for 2023. And I like, you know, excluded web dramas. I excluded dramas that had like 10-minute episodes or like, you know, like shorter runs. It's not a perfect system because the format is so all over the place, but even with that, like sort of limiting what we put on there, it was 125 dramas. Wow. I'm honestly like more than half of those I did not know even existed before I was working on that. Yeah. So like, who can even find out that so many shows exist? None of us.
Yeah.
So
that's
I mean, you know, like that's why, maybe the Year-End Yak is feeling more scattered. But you know, I think that's why it's so good to have the Gogumas be like vote based, and we've been like slowly moving more and more in that direction. And this year they're completely vote based because like all of us are having a collective experience, and no one person or even a team of 3 people can watch enough dramas to make a definitive call about, you know, the year.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up this episode, there are certain notable moments of our year as, you know, hosts of this podcast that we want to go over. So the most popular episode of Dramas Over Flowers in 2023 has been this half episode of Goblin retrospective that Sai and I did in 2022. You guys still love that one.
The one that we promised a part 2 for and still haven't done.
That you recorded without telling me on your own when I couldn't join you.
We're waiting to do a part 2 together, like all 3 of us. So maybe that's a project we should pencil in for 2024.
I feel like once we finish My Demon, it'll be a good time to talk about Goblin because they have a lot of...
They do.
Similarities.
Yeah, because of the parallels. Yeah. So you guys still love that. That's still going weirdly viral times. So
Gongyu never dies.
Gongyu never dies.
Literally never dies. He's immortal. He's an immortal goblin.
And then last year's Year-End Yak, the first episode was also like, that's like the second most popular episode for us. And then the third most one was the episode we did focused on Anisa's thesis on Crash Landing on You. That is our third most and also the most shared episode of 2023.
Definitely a flagship episode of the podcast. I'm so glad we finally got to do it because we've been talking about it for like years.
And also like I'm really happy that people responded to it because I was like, who's gonna listen to this like long academic nerdy thing? But actually, like, people did really appreciate it. So I appreciate that y'all appreciated it.
It added something that was not really there in the conversation about the drama because this was such a hype drama and for good reason. It deserved it. But it also really deserved that academic critical analysis that, you know, not everybody can do because not everybody has that background. So thank you for being our professor once again. It's so valuable, Anisa.
We now
do
await
without
the
you?
episode where Professor Anisa comes and talks about contract managers.
I'm so excited for that and murder rom-coms.
Yes.
I feel like we've been talking about it for like 6 months.
Yeah, I'm currently working. Well, I need to work. I've created an outline. I need to work on the essay for.
There is
like
a flow chart
for about murder rom-coms. The flow chart is already created. I need to write a proper post about contract marriages though.
And then you can present it to the class.
Yeah, then I'll present it to the class.
I'm very excited about this.
Yeah. We also did an anniversary mailbag episode, which we kind of do every year, but we got some really great questions. And you should definitely go back and listen to that episode if you missed it. And we had quite a few external appearances, one of which is Anisa guest hosting the Embodied podcast and inviting Saya and me over to talk about the fandom experience, and which is a brilliant episode overall. She has a lot of really interesting and smart guests, and Anisa does an excellent job of being a host. Segueing from that, Anisa launched her own podcast, The Broadside, which Anisa needs to talk about.
Well, we launched a new a weekly news and culture podcast at my work, which is WNC, which is the NPR station where I live in North Carolina. And if you're not familiar with NPR, it's like National Public Radio. It's basically like
How dare you
our
not be
biggest.
familiar?
I mean, maybe people are
Not
not.
everybody's
Our
in the
listeners are all
US,
over the world,
yeah.
but it's basically like a publicly funded, listener-supported national news network. It's called Public Media. Where we live, it might have different names where you live, but we have local stations, and I work for our local station. And so like my team launched that in the end of September, and they asked me to be the host, and so because of that, I got opportunities to go on other podcasts, like guest hosting Embodied, which is a podcast that my colleagues at WNC make, but also got to like be on a panel on Nerdette out of WBEZ in Chicago, which was really fun, and a couple of other
So
things.
cool.
That was exciting. That was like representing on other pods. But the most exciting thing was having Saya and Paroma come over and be with me at work, and like all my colleagues being like, "Oh my gosh, your friends are so smart and charming." And I was like, "Aren't they? Aren't they the best?" And I was like so proud, and it was very exciting. It was
Can
the
I also
crossover
say-
event of the year.
Paroma and I felt big glow of pride at like, oh, this is our friend Anisa. She's cool. Everyone knows it now. I mean, they know anyway, but it's also like we get to bask in it a little.
And
Yeah.
then speaking of basking in your glory, you two went on another YouTube on a YouTube channel. Tell us about that. Your guest appearance.
I'm gonna let Paroma tell you.
No.
This was all you, Saya. You started it. You have to talk about
Yeah,
it.
but I'm supremely embarrassed by myself at all times. I just couldn't stop myself because it was BTS, and I had to take Paroma with me because that's what I do. And then we ended up finally launching our own BTS YouTube channel. It's called Bangtan Over Flowers because thematic connections are important.
That is correct, and we managed to drag Anisa into that too, and she contributed so much, honestly, because Anisa is our sombe when it comes to K-pop. She properly knows K-pop history. She knows about like second gen groups that we barely know about.
She's not
gives-
only our VIP, she's
Yeah.
a VIP.
She's a
Nice.
And if you watch the video, which I will link below, so many links, please watch that, and you will get that joke if you didn't get it already.
Everyone knows but us, Paroma. Everyone knows but us.
Do they?
We're the latecomers.
but see, Saya,
But you make up for it for your deep and intense nerdy knowledge about BTS. So I have to say, like, I'm never gonna reach that level. I never attempted to reach that level. So I'm very
No,
impressed by that.
that is all Saya. I just get dragged along sometimes just because she needs, like, I don't know, somebody to
Emotional
stand
support.
next to her. Yes. A support blanket? What do you call
Paroma's
that?
my emotional
Security
support.
blanket. The channel that we went to, which by the way, we didn't just like walk in there. It's called the Throga channel. They are songwriters and composers who have their own reaction channel, and so they did a competition that Saya won. And then, she dragged me there as the guest. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun. We did 2 videos with them. And then we did Bangtang Over Flowers, where we did 1 video and then haven't followed up yet. But it got a really good response.
I want
We
to
were so
follow
happy
it
with
up with like a proper spring day kind of,
Yes.
the one where we sit down and just talk about spring day and watch
the many versions,
like, a
and the many
curated
music
list
videos.
of yeah. And we need Anisa for this. So
We do need
that's
Anisa
our
for
next
that.
project.
Yes.
We're going to be the spring dayists.
Okay,
I had
inshallah.
my
Sounds good.
own BTS thingies I did outside this.
Yeah,
Um,
you've totally. Yes.
Yes,
So,
talk about your
Tell
articles.
us about everything.
Yeah, so this is the year I'm apparently relaunching my career as a writer.
Isn't it?
Yes, I'm here for it.
Which is a dream I kind of gave up on, sort of, like 6 years ago when I transitioned into podcast production instead. Didn't quite give it up, but didn't really have that. It wasn't a priority anymore. But earlier in the year, when BTS was celebrating their 10th anniversary, I had an offer from Hindustan Times where they were like, "Do you want to write about that?" And I did, and it's behind a
And I
paywall,
was
but it's up there.
shocked.
Oh yeah, and
Because-
that I wrote that, and Saya read it, and she was like, "Wait, I think you like BTS." that was very emo.
Did you not already know that she liked
No, it
BTS?
was, you know what it is? In our group chat, basically, I'm the one who's always like writing off like 10,000 word essays about all of my feelings and crickets, which is fine because that's okay. And then she comes out with this deep, emotionally touching piece where I'm like, Paroma, I didn't know you felt that way. I was really shocked. I was like, I thought it was just me. But like, she wrote this whole, it was so emotional. And I was like, I want to cry. And I didn't know. She kept it on the very down low.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, between Saya and me, Saya definitely feels like she feels a lot more. And so, because she already expresses all my thoughts, and I don't like see the point in repeating.
I express
them on
my
this
thoughts. I'm not expressing your thoughts. Express your own thoughts.
chat. Okay. The other
Saya
thing.
often expresses things so well that we're left at a loss of words. We're just like, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, plus she has all of the like links to the right music videos and the right bangtang bombs and like basically all the clips and stuff, and which she's bringing receipts. How do I even?
Yeah. So what are you,
You know
supposed
what
to
I
say
do?
after that mic drop?
Did you see my bag?
Ah!
Okay, I won't go there.
Um,
I'll leave it at that. Enough BTS in jokes.
I have one more BTS article coming up next year, but it hasn't come up yet, so we'll see. The other thing that I wrote was the article that I told you guys about, but what is most, like the thing that I am so proud of, aside from having somehow accidentally written an article that was much deeper than the listicle that I was asked to write, is that it was for Film Companion, which is a media company that I have had basically a girl crush on for years at this point. It was founded by Anupama Chopra, who's a renowned film critic. And I never thought I would have the opportunity, but thanks to their managing editor, Dipanjana, I did. She thought I might be able to write something half decent. So thanks, Dipanjana.
So proud. Yeah. We're
It's
so
so
proud. And it was so
good.
good.
Yeah.
So good.
Mm.
So we had a lot of proud moments this year, like personally and also as a group. But this was also a hard year for some couple reasons in particular that we want to talk about. The first one is that, like, as of the date of recording, we just found out yesterday that our beloved Lee Sung-gyun passed away, apparently by suicide, although they haven't officially released the results right now. And that's just a really, really heavy thing, but we didn't want to let this recording go without talking about just remembering him and expressing our sadness and also our anger at how he was taken from us. because, I mean, many people have wrote about this at this point, but he was really like targeted and harassed over like unproven allegations of, drug use and other things. And it's just been like a really horrible time for him and his family. And it shouldn't have happened that way. And we've lost someone who is such a giant of acting, but also like just such a larger than life person that I think none of us will ever forget.
We
I'm
have
going to stop myself before I start crying.
Yeah. It was, I woke up yesterday, I saw the news, and I thought that it couldn't be true. So it's one of those situations where we saw this happening in the last few months. It started from October. The last 2 months have been, we are watching from the periphery. We barely get bits and pieces of what's constantly happening in his life, right? We hear a bit of news 1 week, and then like a month goes by and you hear something else, and it doesn't seem as intense from the outside as it must be from the inside. I will link to a newsletter issue that was written by Jeha Kim, who does a beautiful job of both factually putting down by with dates what was happening, what he was going through, the bare facts of it, and also puts it in the socio-political context that this situation was developing in. We all have our personal thoughts on the current stance of the conservative government, especially on this war on drugs thing that the Western world has already seen the futility of. But apparently, Korea has decided that they need to reinvent the wheel and fall flat on their face yet again while grinding down on a lot of people in the process. So that is something that we are watching happen from the outside. There's not much we can do aside from talking about it. And as we have said before, in situations like this, talking about this openly is like the only form of protest that's left to us, especially because in this situation, we can't even like directly, we are not part of the electorate. We can't vote this government out. We can't be a part of that voice. So externally, this is what we can do. And I know there has been like a lot of people are feeling this really hard because Lee Sung-kyung was such a huge figure in the industry. This is a man who was the national pride of South Korea just 2 years back when he was holding, he was standing at the Oscars. He was like Parasite was winning its awards, and just in 2 years for the entire country to turn on him like this over what are essentially rumors, yeah. So we just went through this, and there is another thing that we need to talk about, just happening for months and months and months, and we all know about this. And honestly, it's been happening for decades, and it's the war on Palestine. It's the
It's not a
occupation of
war.
Palestine. I mean, it's not war with, it's on. It's
Right.
with the people of Palestine, with the unarmed citizens of Palestine. And most importantly, it's not just state-sanctioned occupation. It's UN sanctioned. It's US sanctioned. It's all the powers of the world who call themselves democratic and liberal, turning on people who can't really defend themselves and saying your rights don't matter because our friend, they are the ones who matters.
It's gaslighting on a global scale, as well as everything that it actually is. I think one of the reasons that we just haven't talked about this is partly, I think anyone who's listened to us for a while knows exactly how we feel about this. And also, like, what can you say? Like,
Yeah. I think there's just this like feeling of like you're watching an entire people be decimated live in front of your eyes on video. Everybody is watching it. Everyone knows what's happening. And yet still there's like this completely insane narrative that is somehow
Right.
framing these victims as the aggressors. And you're just like you feel like what do you even say in that kind of situation, when like all like something that's so clearly happening and is so wrong, and yet like people who are pointing that out are like, especially, in my country, which is basically the one country that is powerful enough to just allow this to continue to happen with impunity, and also is funding it for like 75 years. It's so sickening, because like the only people who are pointing out how wrong it is and are speaking up against it are being fired, or being ostracized, being punished, being harassed, being doxxed, receiving death threats. Like, for what? For saying like you can't just keep killing children and committing genocide. Like even the fact that I just said that word is like such a hot button issue. Like, this is something that has been impacting us. We know it's been impacting a lot of the people that listen. We care. We want the violence and the occupation and the ethnic cleansing to stop. But like so many other people, we feel pretty powerless, and it's very demoralizing. And honestly, like, that's part of the reason for me. Like, I didn't really feel like I was in much of a mood to watch K-dramas, especially for a lot of October and November. And even like all of the good things that happened this year feel like on a lot of levels don't really matter in the face of this, I don't know about you guys. I've never stopped thinking about it. I never, like, it's hard to sleep at night. So we just wanted to bring that up because we were talking about our year, and that was like, it continues to be a really big part of this year.
Yeah.
And we don't know, it doesn't look like, in the initial weeks, because you had people talking about it from the very beginning, trying to put things in context, but also trying to explain perspectives that most people in the world don't know about, haven't really cared to learn about, because the dominant narrative is so much a part of history books and what the media usually writes about. The fact that everything didn't just start in October is something that is a surprise to most of the world, even for people who are liberal-minded and progressive, or people who just in general do not support genocides of any people. It's information to them, because for a lot of people, they always thought Palestine and Israel were on equal footing, which is a fantasy that it can only have been propped up by. There was a lot of money involved.
Very powerful propaganda. Yeah.
It's inevitable that when you care about a subject, you go into it and read up as many perspectives as possible, because at no point do I want to be somebody who just listens to one side and doesn't give the other side a chance to explain themselves. And the problem is that I have read so much and heard so much and watched so much, and I don't even have TikTok in my country. So if you come at me and say, hey, TikTok is radicalizing me, I don't know what to say to you. It's just ridiculous.
Where did that come from?
Because did you not know that in America, that is your dominant conversation point right now, that the youth is being radicalized by TikTok, and that's why Gen Z is pro-Palestine?
Yeah, I saw an article from Vice a few weeks back that were like, TikTok isn't radicalizing teens, they're just pro-Palestine. And I was like, yeah.
It's the kind of ridiculous fluff piece debate that you can only have when people either don't care, or there is a concerted effort to distract you from the actual events on hand.
Well, I think both of those things are true.
Yeah.
Probably, yes. But the people who do care, their hearts are being just completely ground down, which is not I know that the biggest tragedy in this situation is not that we are depressed. It's the fact that 20,000 people in Gaza are gone. They're just completely gone. And let us never forget that more than half the population living there are children. They're under 18.
Refugees already.
And they're refugees. There are barely 8 hospitals functional throughout Gaza, and most of them have under 10 people staffing them. Most of these hospitals aren't admitting anybody new anymore. They don't have doctors and nurses because most of them are dead. It's not that they have gone anywhere. They have nowhere to go. It's a situation that is so distressing, and I don't understand why having sympathy for people who are dying is somehow making us wrong. but that is the world we are living in right now. And I don't care that a decade from now people will look back and be like, this was the wrong way of doing things, how could we have done this. I don't care that your conscience is going to wake up a decade from now. This will always be the hell that we are living through and witnessing
Helping to create. Yeah.
and helping to create. So
Yeah. No, I mean, I feel in a lot of ways, I feel like I'm going through again, what we saw post 9/11, where, a lot of people were just being massacred because we could and we wanted to. When I say we, I mean like the US government. And then like 20 years later, everyone's like, oh yeah, well, we shouldn't have invaded Iraq. That was bad. So what? So what? Like, who cares? Millions of people have already been killed and displaced. What's the point of saying that now? And also, what's the point if you're going to turn around and do the exact same thing in 2023?
always do
Like,
the same
take
thing.
the death. And okay, yes, tragic and horrible death of like a couple of thousand people, which is bad. No one is saying it's not bad, but taking that and being like, oh, well, this is a justification for just complete and outright war on people who had really nothing to do with it, with no restrictions.
it's apartheid. And you can't even say that out loud.
9/11 is pretty recent. You go even further back, and we watched exactly the same thing happen with the Bosnian genocide, which everyone watches it happen. They are all saying, oh dear, it's happening, but they wait until enough people are killed, until the ground is leveled, before they're like, oh, hey, maybe we should tell them to stop now. Like, the point, the genocide is the point, and I can't say that enough. It is the point. And if that is the point, then what? Like, I don't know, man. Look, as a person who believes in God, I'm just like, my prayers are my weapons. That's all that I'm relying on. Apart from like doing all the things that you can do, that you should do, like do what you can do physically with your bodies, with your voices, with your fingertips. But, at the end of the day, it's just, I leave it with Allah. There's nothing else that I can
Unfortunately, there is nothing even approaching perfect justice in this world, in this life. So we can only do our best. And it is what it is, and it's going to continue to go on, and
We have to let our rage, like, we can't digest our rage. You can't just let it pass through you. You have to use it to fuel you to do something meaningful in this world, in this short life.
And I think for, to bring it back to our podcast, although what does that even matter in the scheme of things? I think, like, if you know us, if you've been with us this long, or even if you've joined us recently, you know that we're not the type of podcast, and we're not the type of people who just want to enjoy what we enjoy as escapism and leave it at that. Like, for us, the ideas matter, the ethics matter, the values matter. What we are doing and consuming and talking about, what it means, that matters to us. And so that's why we wanted to talk about this. And we know that for a lot of you, all of this stuff really matters too. And that's why you listen to us. And we wanted to see you and hold that space, and just have some moments together to just process. And we love all of you, and we care about you. So I think that's part of that care is acknowledging how we are all feeling. So, as always, you can find us on Twitter at Dramas Overflow. You can find me on Twitter at Anisa _.
You can find me at Not Now Saya.
And you can find me, Paroma, at The Drama Notes. You can also find us on Instagram at dramasoverflowers_, and email us, dramasoverflowers@gmail.com.
And our website is dramasoverflowers.net, and make sure that you sign up for our newsletter. The link is in the description, or you can go to dramasoverflowers.substack.com.
And we'll see you back here for part 2 of the Year-End Yak.
Bye.
Bye.